And greetings from beautiful Augusta, Georgia, where it is now the middle of frickin' November and we still haven't gotten a frost. Which means that, come Thanksgiving, my grains probably just aren't going to be like they were last year. But hey, that's okay. Some gardens turn out great, others don't. But at least, I thank God every single morning that I live in the United States of America and not someplace like North Korea. All right. So that being said, okay, well, we've got a lot to cover today, and I'm going to try to get it done as quick as possible. We've talked about the fact that the U.S. Constitution is a contract. And I've gone all through that. Okay, so now it's time for us to really get down to the brass tacks, okay? Let's start talking about how our government is in violation of that contract that we like to call the U.S. Constitution. And I want to start off with using the words of our revered former Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, who famously said, "The Constitution says what it says and it doesn't say what it doesn't say." In other words, it's a legal contract. And if it doesn't allow the government to do something, then they really just can't do it, in theory. Because we have something called the 10th Amendment. Now, I'm not going to go all the way through the 10th Amendment. I think it's really just one sentence. You can go and look it up yourself. But the 10th Amendment basically says if we don't give the federal government explicitly the power to do something, then they can't do it. Well, I've got plenty of people that will argue with me that, the federal government can really pretty much do whatever the hell they want. And you know what? That is what they do right now. That doesn't make it constitutional. Okay, folks? So we're going to start with one thing. Back in 1979, as a final, if I can use some language, a final fuck you to the nation, Jimmy Carter put together what we have now as the Department of Education. Now, last week, I told you that these Antifa people and these Black Lives Matter people and these folks who are now actually going out and standing in the city squares and screaming helplessly at the sky, that these people deserve our prayer because they're ignorant. Okay, let's talk about why they're ignorant. Why are they ignorant? Because they are government educated. That's why. Yes, Jimmy Carter and the Congress back in 1979 did something that was completely unconstitutional. There is nothing in that document that says that the Department of Education should exist, period. It has nothing to do with interstate commerce. It has nothing to do with Army or a Navy. There's nothing in the Constitution that makes the Department of Education legitimate. And what happened, and I'm not somebody who's into conspiracy theories at all, but what happened. The first thing that they did is that the Department of Education decided that history and civics were non-essential subjects, which meant that you don't have to have a master's degree to teach it. So if you're like me and you grew up in the early 80s, you probably had a football coach teaching you history because you didn't have to have a master's degree to teach it. Then they decided to roll history and civics into one course, and they called it social studies, where the Constitution and studying of how our Republican government is supposed to work really got taken down to just a footnote. And in fact, what kids are learning now is that Benjamin Franklin had a slave. Not that he was the first postmaster general, not the Franklin stove, not the experiments that he did. No, Benjamin Franklin had a slave. And he did. His slave was his best friend. And the reason why he designated him a slave was to protect him during that time. It is what it is. kids aren't being taught that. They're just being taught that Benjamin Franklin had a slave. Now, I want to talk about another framer of a founding father, Thomas Jefferson. Now, if you go to Thomas Jefferson's home at Monticello in Virginia and you see his gravestone, it says that he was the author of the Declaration of Independence and that he was the father of the University of Virginia system. It doesn't mention that he was president of the United States. So if Thomas Jefferson was that much into education, why do we not find any document where he was arguing that the federal government should be in charge of education? He didn't, ever, because he understood it was the local and the state that was their job, not the federal government. Okay, so we've covered that. Let's go to the other side of it. We're going to take $1. Take $1 out of your pocket, okay? I don't have one because I'm poor. But hold it up. $1. We're going to send that dollar to Washington, D.C., okay? And here's what happens to that dollar. It's going to go up a 10-story building. Up, 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 and back down. Down, 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 down. Now, as we go through this 10-story building, there's all these bureaucrats that are having to be paid with portions of that dollar. So by the time we come back down that 10-story building, that dollar is only worth about 70 cents. That dollar then, well, the 70 cents, then gets sent to the state. And it goes into another 10-story building. Up, 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 down, 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 down. Because those people, those bureaucrats, have to figure out what the folks in Washington actually want them to make as a curriculum for the students. So now that dollar is worth roughly, let's say, 45 cents. And then it goes to your local community, where it goes into, here in Augusta, we've got a 5-story building. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up, 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 where more bureaucrats try to figure out what the state wants them to do, what the federal government is telling them to do. And this is how you get Common Core, where after 4,000 years of math, we've decided there's a brand new way to do it. And those local people have to try to figure out how to incorporate that into the classroom. But here's the deal, folks. That dollar, by the time it makes it into the classroom, it's only worth about 20 cents. And that's why your teacher, if you've got kids in school like I do, why your teacher is constantly begging you for school supplies. And you know what? Back 100 years ago, generally speaking, 8th grade was the end of the line. And during that time, we had people who were inventing things. And this is taught in the classroom. It's not anymore. This is, and I really don't, I don't know what the hell to do with that thing. The Department of Education is unconstitutional. You want to drain the swamp? Then start getting rid of the unconstitutional agencies that are there. We need to teach our students, our children, not indoctrinate them and not make them ignorant. End roll.